gang. Green above.
Here we go. History in the making.
Green, green, green.
We have just one race to go until the NASCAR Cup Series Championship 4 is decided. Last weekend, Chase Briscoe threw his name into the championship hat for the very first time with a win at Talladega Superspeedway. This weekend, it's Martinsville Speedway. What driver not already qualified can race or potentially win their way in? We're going to be talking about that and so much more here on the Pit Reporters. My name is Brad Gilley, filling in for Brett McMillan this week. Our panelists from NBC Sports, Dustin Long, and from jski.com, Dustin Albino will join us.
It's the Pit Reporters on the Performance Racing Network. Now in for Brett McMillan, here's Brad Gilley.
Welcome to the Pit Reporters here on the Performance Racing Network. What a great time to be a NASCAR fan. Right now we have two Joe Gibbs Racing Toyotas locked into the Championship 4. Denny Hamlin with his win at Las Vegas Motor Speedway, and Chase Briscoe, as we mentioned in the open, for the first time in his career, will get to race for a NASCAR Cup Series championship. Brad Gilley in for Brett McMillan, joined by a pair of Dustins, not by design, but just by pure luck. Dustin Albino from jski.com, Dustin Long from NBCSports.com. Gentlemen, welcome once again to the Pit Reporters. How y'all doing today?
Great. Thanks a lot. It's good to see my shadow.
Doing good as well. Good luck sending it to each one of us. I know the moderators at NASCAR sometimes have an issue with that.
Oh, that's pretty funny. Is that sort of like someone says, all right, Dustin's next, and both of you are standing there? I liken that too. And this is sort of a behind the curtain. A lot of times we'll be in a press conference where the driver is sitting up on a dais, or a crew chief, team owner, whomever it might be, and then someone in the crowd, the reporters, Dustin Long, Dustin Albino, could be myself or anyone, we'll go to ask a question. Well, it won't be any of us because we'll handle this better. And then the person sitting up at the panel looks and says, "Where are you?" And then the response is, "Over here." That didn't help. How about to your left, to your right? So today we're going to help. I will address you. I was telling Dustin Long, I'll say good Dustin or just Dustin. And then he said evil Dustin. I'm like, well, then you're evil Dustin Long. We'll just say Dustin Long and Dustin Albino. But Dustin Long, how about we start with you? Chase Briscoe, a win at Talladega Superspeedway. Did you see that win as his path to the championship 4?
Well, I don't know if I saw that, but, you couldn't discount it. And, it was a great performance on his part. He was able to stay out of trouble. And you just never know what you're going to get at Talladega. Look, I mean, Chase had talked about, for a while about how he had struggled at that type of racing and talked about he just felt like, early in his career he would race tentatively and kind of let things happen and then get caught in stuff. And then he decided to be more aggressive, and then that didn't work as well. And then he said he finally worked on this hybrid of, hey, I've got enough experience. I know when to go. I know when to not go and make the right decisions. And he made the right decisions. I mean, look, still a lot of things have to fall in place. And the one thing that people have to understand is that, when you get Talladega, Daytona, where you've got the lines that, if you're leading or second in a line, there's a lot you can do to impact your result. But sometimes it can be as important what the car third, fourth, fifth in line does, because if they pull out of line, then it takes the energy from that line, and then even though you're first or second in line, you didn't do anything wrong. Now you start falling back a little bit to the next line because what happens behind you. So. Everything worked out right for Chase. He gets his first victory on a speedway. He never won on a speedway in Cup, Xfinity, Trucks, or ARCA. So this was a big moment for him for that, just from a personal standpoint, not along with just obviously getting to win there and advance to the championship race for the first time in his Cup career.
All right, Dustin Albino, first your take on Chase Briscoe's win, and secondly, among the manufacturers, did you expect Toyota to be the one holding up a trophy at the end of it?
Honestly, I'll address the Toyota part first. No. You look at the top 10 finishers, though, they had 5 of the top 8, and really it's just because of a sheer lack of numbers. You go to these types of tracks and you're looking for Penske and Hendrick, and I mean, Chevrolet and Ford, they just have a way more amount of numbers in the field. So Toyota, no. But look, Ty Gibbs was a loyal teammate to Chase Briscoe too. When Dustin was saying that Chase made that move down the backstretch, Ty went with him. So big day for Chase Briscoe, obviously. And you look at just the way the 19-team season has kind of evolved over the year. They started off slow. And honestly, like, you probably expect that. This is the first time Chase is getting this caliber of equipment with this caliber of team, paired with a new crew chief, and it's going to take time naturally. So, but the second half of the year, it's hard to look at anybody as they've been better than the 19 team.
Yeah, I would agree. All right, Dustin Long, one of the superpowers that Ford has had, especially Team Penske, when it comes to speedway racing, is just their amazing discipline, willingness to work together, all of those things. And truthfully, throughout the bulk of that race, it looked like we were going to see that again, even though two of them were also going for the same goal in Ryan Blaney and Joey Logano trying to get that victory. But then at the end, it almost seemed to falter a little bit. Did it, and why?
Yeah, it's they were in control of the race for a good part of the race, the last half of it, and looked like to be in a good position, especially after the restart with 17 to go. You had Ryan Blaney starting first on the inside line. Logano was second and chose behind Blaney as opposed to taking outside of row one. So you had the two Penske cars lined up, and then you had Brad Keselowski and his RFK Racing teammate Ryan Preece lined up in fourth. So you had four Fords right there together. And that should have been a pretty good combination, a potent combination, but it just didn't work. And, Joey and Ryan expressed some frustration after the race that they just didn't feel like Brad was sucking up as close to the back of Joey's car to give him the push that they felt like that they really needed. And because of that, they were sliding back, and then cars from the outside could cut down in front of them, and that just kind of dropped them further and further back. I know Ryan was saying, I think they both were saying, is they felt like Brad was saving fuel. I did talk to Jeremy Bollins after the race and say, was there a mechanical issue, or were you saving fuel, or what was it that weren't able to maybe get as close? And he says, we weren't saving fuel. So it wasn't a fuel savings thing. It just didn't work out. But still, Brad was able to manage a 10th place finish. I know before the overtime restart, both Blaney and Logano came down pit road to fuel up. Or to get some additional fuel so they could make it a little further. And again, there's a case that, how many times have we seen these type of races go into a second or third overtime? And if it had done that, then I think Ryan Blaney and Joey Logano are back in a very good position because so many other cars were good for one overtime. But if it had gone to multiple overtimes, you would have seen, most everybody else pit. I mean, look, Kyle Larson runs out of fuel on the backstretch of the last lap. William Byron would have run out. He got through that finish, but it had been another overtime restart. He would have had to pit as well. So sometimes it's just things just go. You can plan all you want, and then when things don't go your way, sometimes it's just things you can't control. And I think that was part of the situation. Again, it's the car behind him. Blaney and Logano were doing everything that they needed and could do. But if the cars behind them aren't able to do what's needed to be done, then you kind of fall back, and now all of a sudden your game changes dramatically.
It was interesting. I was trying to imagine a scenario pre-race because going into this, we had two Gibbs teammates who were not already qualified in the championship for Christopher Bell and Chase Briscoe. We had three Hendrick teammates who were not already qualified with Chase Elliott, Kyle Larson, and William Byron, plus two Team Penske teammates with Joey Logano and Ryan Blaney. And Dustin Albino, I kept wondering, is there a scenario where we're going to see one push another to the checkered flag, and how is that going to work out? I almost feel like that was never meant to be, and what we did have was a non-playoffs teammate push another playoffs teammate to a win. What was your take going into it versus what we saw at the end?
Yeah, after talking to some of the drivers on Saturday, Austin Cindric kind of prefaced this whole situation where, each of Hendrick, Penske, and Gibbs all had one wingman from outside of the playoffs that could help push one of their cars to victory. And whether it came to fruition, it's so hard because you're obviously it's a fast-moving sport. You're going 200 miles an hour roughly, and to get in those situations, it's you'd have to be like a perfect scenario, right? But that's exactly what we had with Ty Gibbs and Chase Briscoe. So, there's been a lot of questions about Ty Gibbs, whether it be at New Hampshire or other instances this year about his loyalty. But this kind of sets the precedent, I feel like, going forward. And Chase was very appreciative of that obviously, after the race.
When we come back here on the Pit Reporters, we head to Martinsville Speedway this weekend. 6 drivers are vying for the final 2 Championship 4 spots. Let's break it down. Let's handicap it as the Pit Reporters continues right after this.
This is Kyle Petty for Echo Park Automotive, and I'm here to tell you why you should shop Echo Park before you buy a car, truck, or SUV. Over half of inventory at Echo Park is priced below $25,000, and car for car, truck for truck, Echo Park Automotive's pricing is $3,000 less than the competition. Maybe that's why Echo Park has over 95,000 5-star reviews. Echo Park Automotive is built to make sure you drive away happy. It's even in their name, Echo Park Automotive. Every car, happy owner. The official used car dealer of Speedway Motorsports.
When it comes to maintaining your engine to run at peak performance, trust Z-Max Micro Lubricant. Z-Max soaks into metal, so it's easy to add to your oil or gas to disperse carbon buildup in your engine, fuel system, and transmission. Protect your vehicle's engine to the max with Z-Max. Check us out at zmax.com or visit us on Facebook and Twitter to find out more about our full line of products. Remember the name Z-Max for your car, big rig, small engines, firearms, and more. That's Z-Max Micro Lubricant.
Lenny Baticki brings you PRN at the track every week here on PRN, the Performance Racing Network.
Hi, I'm PRN's Alexis Eric. Want to listen to PRN anywhere you go? By downloading the PRN mobile app, you can listen to live race broadcasts and have on-demand access to your favorite shows like Fast Talk, Pit Reporters, Garage Pass, and PRN's At the Track. Download today to make sure you don't miss any of the action. Get the latest racing information at your fingertips with the PRN mobile app, available on Apple App Store and Google Play. Find more information at goprn.com.
In Iraq, our truck hit a roadside bomb. I had about 16 surgeries on my hand so that I could regain function. And when I came home, I needed a new roof due to a storm. And I was about to lose homeowners insurance as well. I applied for Operation Homefront Critical Financial Assistance Program. And it's good to know that when we come home, there are people who are there that care about us. Operation Homefront, they've really been a blessing.
Let's get back to more Pit Reporters on the Performance Racing Network.
Welcome back to the Pit Reporters. Brad Gilley sitting in for Brett McMillan this week. We have Dustin Albino from jski.com, Dustin Long from NBCSports.com, and we head to Martinsville Speedway this weekend. As we look at our playoffs picture, boy, have things tightened up quite a bit with this final race. Right now, Chase Briscoe, Denny Hamlin, they both advanced to the championship round. Christopher Bell at plus 37, Kyle Larson at plus 36. That would sound comfortable. But it's not, and we'll explain more. Minus 36, William Byron. He's a 2-time winner in the Next Gen at Martinsville. Joey Logano, minus 38. He's had top 10s in every Next Gen race at Martinsville Speedway. Minus 47, Ryan Blaney. He's won this race in each of the last 2 years. And Chase Elliott, the 2020 winner during his championship season at Martinsville Speedway. Well, there is no path to the championship for outside of him going to victory lane. At minus 62, he cannot make it in on points. So, Dustin Albino, I will start with you. Do the 4 above the cut line remain the 4 that go into the championship, or do we see someone win their way from behind the cut line, and who would it be?
Oof, that is such a tough question. Because handicapping this, these 8 guys, including Denny and Briscoe, like arguably the 8 best drivers at Martinsville in the Cup Series. So I'm going to say no. I think Blaney wins, although Blaney, and Dustin was there for this on Sunday afternoon, was very adamant in saying, like, he shouldn't be declared the favorite. It's much harder than just, everyone saying he's going to win, but like it's harder than that. So he was very adamant. We got a new left side tire as well. So I think someone below is going to win. I think. But you look at it, and Christopher Bell and Kyle Larson also think they're in a must win. After talking to some of the crew chiefs on Tuesday, it's going to be fascinating. We've never, off the top of my head, I can't think of a situation where everyone below the cut line pretty much has to win. in order to advance at Martinsville. So we're in for a good show this weekend.
I would agree. Dustin Long, it's almost like if someone says to Dustin Albino's point, hey, among these 6 drivers, who's the favorite at Martinsville? And the answer is just simply yes. I mean, all of them. There is, and I was looking at stats myself. They're literally, I don't know that you could throw another driver's name into this mix who would supersede any one of the 6, or quite honestly, the 8 that are there now. What's your take, Dustin Long?
And I just, here's the thing is they've been able to have success because not only are they good, but their teams are good. Their teams aren't always making mistakes, and they've had, strong races, so they put themselves in position to win those races when they've had to, or at Martinsville. Obviously, Chase has won a must-win situation at Martinsville in 2020. Christopher Bell has done it. So even though he's in a good spot right now, he's been in that situation. Ryan Blaney, as you mentioned, has done it. So to me, I think what's going to be fascinating is which team blinks. Which the team that, makes a mistake on pit road, or there's an issue that, a bad restart, or gets caught up in traffic, or gets hit by somebody else and gets turned around or something like that. So it's because it's so close between each of these, I think it's going to come down to who doesn't make the mistakes to be able to put themselves in position. And then still you've got to, you still got to beat a Denny Hamlin potentially, or, somebody else. Even though Kyle Larson would tell you that, he doesn't feel like he's as strong there. I mean, he's still a very good driver there, or somebody else that could come up and challenge for the win. So I don't know which one is going to be that, but I'm just curious of like what are the what teams are going to make the mistakes, and who are going to be, almost perfect or almost spot on, because then you're going to put yourself in position. Any one of those teams can put themselves in position. And we've seen those teams throughout the year at various points have issues on pit road, or have something go wrong, or this or that. So it will be fascinating to watch. It's hard to predict, and that's what makes it wonderful. That's what makes sports wonderful. Is you can plan it out on paper, but then once they get out there, it's completely different.
Yeah, I would agree with you. So as I mentioned, plus 37, plus 36, you would look at any driver and go, oh man, they should be fine, but they're not. Because again, if any driver wins from behind the cut line, now Kyle Larson and Christopher Bell are separated by 1 point. And I think that's almost how you have to look at it. Both Dustins, I'm going to ask both of you the same question. Dustin Long, I will start with you. If you're Christopher Bell and Kyle Larson, do you have a strategy that dictates you pay attention to the other, or do you just go out there and run your own race and try and win?
I think you just go out and win, because I think if you change anything up, then I think you're changing what the regular routine is, and now you're doing something different, and you don't want to be doing something different. You just keep, focus on winning. And look, if it gets to a point where, hey, you're not in a position to win, but you're in a position to get a top 5, then focus on that, and you focus as the race goes on, and you adjust the game plan at that point. But I think for both those teams, they have to come in thinking that they have to win, because that way it keeps one of those from below the cut line from winning. If you're just going in thinking, oh, I just need to get 20 points, and I'll get 10 in the 2 stages, and then I'll get whatever. No, that's you're going to be playing defensive. I want the ball. I want to play offense, and I don't want to have to do something that I have not naturally done the first 34 races of the season. Don't change the game now. Just do what you've been doing to get here. And then if you have to make adjustments, you adjust as the race goes on, once you see what position you're in or what position others are in.
All right, Dustin Albino, if I'm either Bell or Larson, what do you say? Do you concur with Dustin, or do you say, look, as long as I stay in front of the other all night long, I'm going to be safe?
I agree with Dustin. Give me the ball. I want to run, right? Like, you look at Byron just 2 years ago, he was playing defense pretty much the whole race, and it nearly cost him a spot. He entered the race with like an 18 or 20 point buffer, and it was gone. So, it'd be tough for either Bell or Larson to give up that many points unless something went haywire early in the opening stages of the race. But I think you go in, you got to focus to win, right? Like, that's what you're there to do. If you win, you keep the other guys out too. So, I think you got to go there for the win, because ultimately, like, It's what you need to do. That's your easiest way through, is to win. And I say easy, obviously it's not easy, but you control your own destiny by doing that.
Yeah, I like that. And I would agree with all of you, both of you, in saying that you just got to go out there and race. And if you do your job, you should make it to the championship 4, which will be interesting. We'll talk more about that when we come back here on the Pit Reporters. It seems like the most active team when it comes to NASCAR silly season is actually in the Xfinity Series. Junior Motorsports has had quite a few announcements. We'll talk about what their lineup's going to look like next year and much more as the Pit Reporters continues right after this.
You hear that? That's the sound of uncertainty lurking under your hood. You know the feeling. I know I do. That sudden sinking sensation when you see a check engine light or your car unexpectedly breaks down and you're faced with sky-high repair bills. It's time to shield against unexpected repairs with CarShield. CarShield is America's most trusted auto protection company and has an A rating with the Better Business Bureau. Don't let the fear of a breakdown keep you up at night. Trust the Shield, CarShield, and say goodbye to terrifying repair bills and hello to peace of mind. Your plan also comes with 24/7 roadside assistance, courtesy towing, rental car options, and so much more. Don't wait till it's too late. Call CarShield now before a breakdown. Protect your wallet. Protect your car with CarShield. Get our best protection ever. Call now. You'll thank me later. 800-859-0047. 800-859-0047. That's 800-859-0047.
Mark Garrow's your host for Garage Pass here on PRN, the Performance Racing Network.
This is the kind of racing you can feel in your chest. Door to door, inches apart, every lap, all on the line. This is Echo Park Speedway, the hottest track in NASCAR. 3 days of tailgates, camping, and full throttle fun. But Sunday is chaos, speed, and glory. This February 22nd, the Auto Trader 400 takes over Atlanta. Get tickets at EchoParkSpeedway.com.
In addition to traditional summer camp, Victory Junction also hosts family weekends, partner programs, and day camps. And the Victory Junction Outreach Program takes camp fun beyond our gates to children at hospitals and partner sites throughout North Carolina, South Carolina, and Virginia. Victory Junction makes the impossible accessible.
This is a place that needs to be here 50 years from now, 100 years from now. We are never going to run out of kids that can benefit from Victory Junction.
Discover how you can get involved at victoryjunction.org.
We're back with more of the Pit Reporters on the Performance Racing Network.
Welcome back to the Pit Reporters. Brad Gilley sitting in for Brett McMillan. We are joined by Dustin Albino from jski.com, from NBCSports.com, at the PRN Worldwide headquarters at Charlotte Motor Speedway, our good friend Dustin Long. This year, the most dominant organization in NASCAR has actually been Junior Motorsports on the Xfinity side. They've won the lion's share of the races, most of which have come with Connor Zilisch, but they've won with a lot of different drivers, including Shane Van Gisbergen, Daniel Suarez, Sammy Smith, Justin Allgaier, and many, many others. They've been the busiest right now when it comes to the NASCAR silly season. In fact, earlier this week, it was announced that Rajah Caruth will run a part-time schedule in the number 88 car at Junior Motorsports. Add Rajah to Justin Allgaier returning to the 7 full-time, Sammy Smith in the number 8, Connor Zilisch and Carson Kvapil sharing the number 1 car. You also have Shane Van Gisbergen and Ross Chastain running some races in the number 9 car. They've just brought over Rodney Childers. He actually got to walk into the building earlier this week, and a lot of big things happening. Dustin Long, Junior Motorsports just seems to continue to do amazing things in Xfinity. What do you make of what their lineup is shaping up to be next year?
Yeah, I mean it's another great lineup, and it's a great avenue for some of the younger drivers through the Chevrolet program to work their way up, be with really good equipment, work with really good people. It's a great opportunity for some of the veterans. Obviously, Justin Allgaier has been there for years now and is a great cornerstone of that organization. And I think he has the right temperament and understanding to work with these younger drivers, and I think he's done some really good things with these drivers through the last few years as he's really matured and grown, and obviously getting the Xfinity Championship last year, but I think he's been a good role model for a lot of those young drivers. And then obviously it's good equipment, so you bring over some other drivers with experience. It's still a great avenue for Shane Van Gisbergen to do some things. Although my guess is he'll probably be doing more of the road courses than ovals type of thing, and that's again chance to go, as they say at colleague racing, go after trophies, go chase trophies or trophy hunting. So that's an opportunity to do that. Ross Chastain, an opportunity as well. So it's a nice lineup, a good mix of things. And again, that's right now the preeminent Xfinity team right in the series, and won 17 races so far this season, and maybe they'll be in another championship this year.
All right, Dustin Albino, comment on Junior Motorsports, but I also want to ask you more specifically about Rajah Caruth. Among the drivers that we just mentioned that we know of now, Rajah Caruth is the guy who does get to move up from the NASCAR Craftsman Truck Series right now. So your take on his career trajectory and how he'll fit into the JRM lineup.
Yeah, so for Rajah, that's just the natural progression, right? And I understand that it's only a partial season, but still he's getting laps, he's getting experience, and he's run 2/3 of a season over the last 4 years combined in the Xfinity Series. So I think this will be a great opportunity for him to get in winning equipment. We've seen what the 88's done this year, so expectations should be high, but also moderate for Rajah just to get laps. But Junior Motorsports as a whole, yes, they keep making power moves in that series. Dale Jr. did mention on his podcast a couple weeks ago that 2026 is going to look different. And I mean, just look at their lineup. It is looking different. Instead of 4 full-time drivers, you only have 2 with Sammy Smith and Justin Allgaier. So that's something to follow. But on the ownership side and on the owner standing side, they're locked and loaded.
All right, so while we're still talking, Dustin Albino, I mentioned Rodney Childers, championship-winning Cup Series crew chief, moving over to Junior Motorsports for the Xfinity Series, and I'm sure a lot of other things. They've got a pretty strong late model program there as well. This is also right about the same time we just learned last week Jim Pohlman is leaving, the crew chief for Justin Allgaier, for whom he won a championship last season. Pohlman is going to crew chief for Kyle Busch on the Cup side of things next year. So with Pohlman going out, Childers coming in, do we expect Childers to just sort of help take that baton and move it forward, or what do you see different potentially?
You would think so. A little bit of a different role, only because Justin Allgaier confirmed over the weekend at Talladega that Rodney's going to be on that one car. There are some thoughts that maybe he moves to the 7 or one of the full-time cars, but no, he's staying with the one car. So yes, you have that experience, the ingenuity that'll come into play, something you really couldn't do with the next-gen car, and I think it showed with Rodney and the 4 team at Stewart-Haas. So, that team's going to be pretty impressive next year, I think, because you do have a Rodney Childers, a Cup championship-winning crew chief, and 40 race wins as a crew chief. It's going to be something to watch with that one team.
It is going to be pretty cool. All right, Dustin Long, we have to ask this question. I think probably what's going to turn out to be the most sold diecast this year is actually going to be that number 40 car that Justin Allgaier entered the Daytona 500 in the Cup debut of Junior Motorsports. That was the Cup debut. How soon before we're starting to talk about them do you feel as a regular on the Cup schedule?
Yeah, I think that's the question we've been asking for a number of years now, and obviously Dale Earnhardt Jr. and Kelly Earnhardt Miller have really looked into that issue for a long time. But until the situation's right, I don't think it's going to happen. Now, does that mean further wait? I don't know. I think some of it may be dependent on some of the things going on throughout the sport right now in terms of especially like the lawsuit. I think everybody's kind of waiting to see what happens there in terms of settlement, or if it will go to trial as scheduled December 1st, what happens if it goes to trial, and so forth. So I think at some point you will see Junior Motorsports in the Cup Series as a full-time organization. It's just a matter of when and how they get there. I think there are certainly some avenues, but they're going to do it on their schedule and when they feel it is right and when it makes the most sense, and not overextend themselves like we've seen some teams do in the past, and then not have the performance, or then everything costs so much more and suddenly having financial issues. So I think they're going to put everything in line, and then you'll see it. And when that day happens, I think it'll be a great day for the sport. and it'll be interesting to see the progression of that group. I mean, look, you see what Trackhouse has done in a short amount of time, and 23XI has done in a short amount of time, and I think that's one of the benefits of the next gen car is that because it's if you want to call it a spec car, but essentially everybody's got the same car, that it kind of equalizes things. Now, again, that doesn't mean that everybody's got an even chance, because look at who we're talking about in the final 8. It's teams in the Cup Series. It's teams from Joe Gibbs Racing, Team Penske, and Hendrick Motorsports, the 3 biggest, strongest, most dominant organizations. So even with the car essentially the same from one organization to the next, with all that manpower and all the resources, there's still ways to find the little things that make those cars better at the various tracks. So, but I look forward to that day, and I think it'll be a great day for NASCAR when Dale Earnhardt Jr. and Kelly are both full-time Cup owners.
Yeah, it is going to be exciting. When we come back here on the Pit Reporters, you mentioned something, Dustin, that I do find interesting. We come down to our round of 8 teams, and it is the top 3 organizations in the Cup Series right now, one with each manufacturer. Let's talk about the virtues of that, or, man, would it be awesome to see, 5 different owners involved in this? We'll consider those possibilities and the eventualities and all of that when we come back here on the Pit Reporters.
Hey, this is Michael Waltrip for Echo Park Automotive, and I'm here to tell you why you should shop Echo Park before you buy a car, truck, or SUV. Over half the inventory at Echo Park is priced below $25,000. And car for car, truck for truck, Echo Park Automotive's pricing is $3,000 less than the competition. Maybe that's why Echo Park has over 100,000 5-star reviews. Echo Park Automotive is built to make sure everyone drives away happy. It's even in their name, Echo Park Automotive. Every car, happy owner. The official used car dealer of Speedway Motorsports.
This is the kind of racing you can feel in your chest. Door to door, inches apart, every lap, all on the line. This is Echo Park Speedway, the hottest track in NASCAR. 3 days of tailgates, camping, and full throttle fun. But Sunday is chaos, speed, and glory. This February 22nd, the Auto Trader 400 takes over Atlanta. Get tickets at EchoParkSpeedway.com.
Doug Rice is your host for Fast Talk every week on PRN, the Performance Racing Network.
Get your NASCAR fix with PRN's Garage Pass.
It's hard to just turn it around in 1 week, but I wouldn't be shocked if we did.
I don't think the results have been what we have hoped for or expected, but I think the potential in the cars and the speed has been pretty good.
It's a big deal already, so that's a big positive for us. So I think now it's just about working together and getting better.
I think the Penske cars are still elite when it comes to plate racing.
Hi, I'm Mark Garrow, tracking the latest racing news every weekday.
We all play a role in keeping our community safe.
Every day, we move in and out of each other's busy lives.
It's easy to take for granted all the little moments that make up our everyday.
Some are good, others not so much.
But that's life.
It's when something doesn't seem quite right that it's time to pay attention.
Because only you know what's not supposed to be in your everyday.
So protect your everyday.
If you see something suspicious, say something to local authorities.
Let's get back to more Pit Reporters on the Performance Racing Network.
Welcome back to the Pit Reporters. Brad Gilley sitting in for Brett McMillan this week alongside Dustin Long from NBC Sports, Dustin Albino from jski.com. And we were just talking about the fact that the top 3 teams, the top teams with all of the 3 manufacturers, are the ones that are in playoffs contention. We don't have a Trackhouse. We don't have a Richard Childress Racing. We don't have a 23XI. We don't have an RFK. We don't have a lot of organizations that are there, but it has come down to Gibbs, Hendrick, and Penske. Dustin Long, let me start with you. Is that a good thing, or would you like to see a little more diversity when it comes for the teams or to the teams that could be potentially competing for the title?
How are we defining good thing? Because at the end of the day, these are the strongest teams. We've talked about just, how these are probably the best teams out there, and these are the best cars and the best teams for Martinsville. So you can make the argument that in this case, you've got the best. So if you talk about the need for maybe more teams, what makes it a good thing, or how do you define that?
No, I like where you went with that, because again, one of the conversations we've had when it comes to potentials for playoff formats and all of that, do we always wind up with the best teams running for the championship and so on and so forth? And that's where we are right now. So if that is the way to define it, then is that the best scenario? Doesn't matter what shop they race out of, as long as we got the best ones that are going for it. Is that it? I mean, is that what we want? Is that what we're all looking for?
Yeah, it's. I think everybody's going to answer that differently, and I can respect that. And so, look, one of the things I like in sports, and I think a lot of people do, is I like to see upsets. And so, it doesn't bother me if there is a Cinderella run to a championship in some other sport. Obviously, you could say, hey, in one sense, Joey Logano had that Cinderella run last year in the playoffs, with only winning once in the regular season, being outside the top 10 in points before the regular season started, and then winning 3 races in the playoffs, including the championship race. He was the champion, and that did not resonate with as many of with some of the fans. Now, again, maybe some of that's just because of who the driver was, and if it was a different driver, maybe it's a different reaction by some fans. But I think I like that you can have the upsets. There's still something about seeing excellence, and to see somebody perform week over week, or some team or organization, to see an undefeated season in football or basketball or something like that. You can appreciate that. And so, look, it doesn't bother me either way, because, as a general sports fan, I like to see, like I said, the Cinderellas. I do like to see some of the strong teams, especially if it's my team. Yeah, I want to see them. But I think this is what is here. I think there's some good things, but obviously, as you alluded to, I think the expectation is the playoffs will probably. I think the expectation is the playoffs will look a little different next year, and there's nothing wrong with that either.
Mm-hmm. I agree. What do you think, Dustin Albino? The top 3 organizations in the sport are the ones now vying for the championship. Good or bad?
I think it's great personally, and like Dustin, and we talk sports all the time. Pretty avid sports fan here too, and you do like the occasional upset, like in a college basketball in the NCAA tournament, or maybe a wild card team in the MLB playoffs gets hot and gets on a run like the Diamondbacks and Rangers a couple years ago, and then they get to the World Series. But I think you want your blue blood, your flagship teams to perform and excel in the playoffs. And that's what we have, especially this year. I talked to Chase Briscoe at Las Vegas a week and a half ago, and he thinks that this year, this is the most stacked the round of 8's ever been. And by looking at the numbers, it's hard to argue with the amount of wins, top 5s, top 10s, laps led, all the metrics that you can account for. These are the best 8 teams. They're the 3 best organizations year over year. They're key partner teams, obviously. So I think as a sports fan, it's fun to follow something like that.
Mm-hmm. I would concur with both of you, by the way. And I do love the fact that really the top 8 teams in the sport are the ones that made it to this round of 8 as well. All right, Dustin Albino. Joe Gibbs Racing kicked off the round of 16 with 3 different drivers in victory lane. They swept that round, starting with Chase Briscoe at Darlington, Denny Hamlin at Gateway, and then Christopher Bell capped it off with a win in the Bristol night race. We could see that scenario repeat itself with Denny Hamlin winning at Vegas, Chase Briscoe winning at Talladega. So it's just all up to Christopher Bell this weekend, right?
It sounds like it, right? Based off the stats you just laid out. You look at Joe Gibbs Racing, and look, Martinsville is one of their best tracks. Denny Hamlin, stud at Martinsville, always has been. Chase Briscoe, really good with Stewart Haas Racing. Now you put him in a Joe Gibbs car, he's going to be lethal. Christopher Bell, he only has 2 top 5s. Dustin mentioned earlier in 2022, he had the walk-off win to lock into the championship for. You could certainly see him do that again, even though technically he doesn't need to win going into the weekend, but as we discussed earlier, it's probably he will have to win. And then non-playoff, Ty Gibbs is a pretty good short track racer himself. He ranks 2nd on speed for the year on short track. So I don't put it past him for sure. Joe Gibbs Racing has got a stacked lineup on the short tracks.
All right. So Dustin, when Joey Logano won his first championship, the joke that weekend that he made in the media availability before the championship race. Well, I guess it's the big three and me, because the drivers he were going up against were the big three. Well, now it could be JGR and me. Do you see it turning out that way? Does a manufacturer get locked out of the championship four?
Well, I think right now it seemed like maybe Ford and Team Penske get locked out with Kyle Larson in that position, and William Byron the first one out. You could see the three JGRs and a Chevrolet, which would be interesting. The interesting thing about this is a lot of people are fearful of Team Penske at Phoenix, and that if they suddenly get one of their cars in, that car suddenly becomes the favorite next week. And that shows how much the sport can change. And again, obviously it's dependent on the track and situations like that. But, a Penske car could be, I don't know if there's a overwhelming favorite for Martinsville, even with Ryan Blaney winning the last two playoff races at Martinsville. But I think if you go to Phoenix with a Team Penske car, whether it's Logano or Blaney, I think everybody's going to look at those cars, one of those cars, as the favorite. Even though Denny's won 6 races, Christopher's won it at Phoenix, and Chase has won it at Phoenix. If that's the lineup. So to me, it'll be fascinating to see. But again, I wouldn't discount a Hendrick Motorsports car. I mean, look how strong Hendrick has been at this track, and Chase Elliott has had to win and done it before. So could he do it again, or is it William Byron's turn? Get the regular season champion into the championship four. To me, there's just a lot of interesting storylines for this weekend, and it'll be fun, and it's going to be really fascinating to see what really happens.
Interesting storylines. When we come back, I want to talk about the end of Talladega, because with the exception of maybe one or two drivers, it seemed like every playoffs driver in some form or fashion was miserable when that one was over, even if they're still above the cut line. We'll talk about that when we come back.
Look, how do you feel today? Maybe you're a little hungover again, feeling a little embarrassed about a few things? Listen, why haven't you called yet to get help? Man, aren't you tired of feeling this way? So listen, whatever your party drug of choice is, there are ways to get clean and sober, especially if it's messing with your life. Hey man, we all have choices. You can make a choice right here, right now, today, to call the number I'm about to give you and start a brand new life without drugs or booze. I know it's hard to think about this, but imagine how great your life could be. And all it takes is one simple phone call. I've got a team of people standing by ready to check your insurance and let you know what it takes to get clean and sober. Okay, so get ready to save this number, because here it comes.
800-296-1140. 800-296-1140. 800-296-1140. That's 800-296-1140. Paid for by the Detox Treatment Helpline.
Catch Kyle Petty's Back Then Again Country Countdown with Charlie and Debbie here on PRN, the Performance Racing Network.
Hi, this is Doug Rice at PRN. Join me every Monday night for another great episode of Fast Talk.
I watched the race on TV, and they wanted to give him the mantle of greatest of all time, and he's won 4 races in a row. And so I can't do that yet. But I do think what we're watching is a guy who's changing the sport. He's changing the way the other drivers approach road racing. He's making them study. He's making them up their game.
That's Fast Talk right here on the Performance Racing Network.
Local radio brings people together like never before.
It's a beautiful hometown weekend out there. We've got
your local stations keep you informed and involved with music, talk shows, and real-time news updates you can trust. We are live and local. We are America's broadcasters, connecting you to what matters most. Text radio to 52886 and tell Congress to support your local radio stations.
Message and data rates may apply. You may receive up to 4 messages a month, and you may text STOP to STOP.
This message furnished by the National Association of Broadcasters.
We're back with more of the Pit Reporters on the Performance Racing Network.
Welcome back to the Pit Reporters alongside Dustin Albino from jski.com and Dustin Long from NBCSports.com. My name is Brad Gilley, sitting in for Brett McMillan, who will be back with you next week for the Pit Reporters here on the Performance Racing Network. So we left Talladega Superspeedway. Chase Briscoe was thrilled. He gets to race in the Championship 4. In fact, I think his crew chief, James Small, might have even been more thrilled about having the opportunity to do that, so much so that he walked up and kissed Ty Gibbs on the cheek to thank him for the great teamwork at the end of that race. But one thing, Dustins, that I found fascinating, Christopher Bell leaves there 37 points above the cut line. You know, I got to talk to him after the race, and he's dumbfounded. I don't know what to think. I'm just miserable. I mean, obviously, if you're William Byron, you're frustrated. If you're the Penske cars, well, you're very frustrated. Chase Elliott actually was more cordial in the care center after finishing last than I thought he would be. Even Denny Hamlin, who's already locked into the next round, seemed like he was a little distraught at the end of this race. Honestly, I think other than Chase Briscoe, the only one who seemed to be somewhat happy was Kyle Larson. Dustin Long, what do you make of the way the driver emotions outside of the race car turned out on Sunday afternoon?
Look, that's what the playoffs are about. That's what the playoffs do, and the playoffs just pull at your emotions. And it is a 10-week grind for these guys. And remember, it's what is it? The series is raced every week since right after Easter. So I mean, what is it? 28 races in a row that it'll finish the season. So I mean, it is a long stretch, and now you're going through the ringer week after week in the playoffs. Danny Hamlin's frustration was like, a mechanical issue, and just the point of, hey, we can't have this happen at Phoenix because it's a one race, shootout for the championship. If something like this happens, we're out of it. It's I think for Byron, it was a disappointment of losing 20-25 points on the last lap, and after getting spun, that if he has those points, instead of being as far back as he is, he might be able to get in on points and not be in as much of a must-win situation. I think, Christopher Bell could have had a little bit larger gap. And obviously, look, Kyle Larson, Kyle Larson is California cool and not much rattles him. But obviously, you think there's some disappointment because he could have been, if he didn't get the win and automatically advance, then he could have been, another 20 or so points and be in a lot stronger position. And so, the Penske cars were frustrated. The Penske drivers were frustrated, as we mentioned earlier, just with they were questioning why they weren't getting as much help from behind or why there wasn't as much of a push from behind. And so, and obviously, look, talking to them as soon as they get out of the car, the emotions are going to be high. And that was a situation where they had control, they lost it. And this, it looked like with 20 laps to go that one of them was going to advance with a victory, and all of a sudden now both need to win at Martinsville, and so likely you're going to see only one car at most get in at Phoenix for Team Penske, if they're even able to have that. They may get shut out, and this is the organization's won the championship the last 3 years.
Yeah, very true. Dustin Albino, what stood out to you from driver reaction out of the race car Sunday at Talladega?
Yeah, Dustin kind of covered it all there, but obviously the Penske drivers were frustrated, rightfully so, with how the waning laps of that race went. And like Dustin said, the organization that's won the last 3 championships now could be shut out entirely, and have a best finish of 5th at the highest in the playoffs. So. With William Byron, that's just compounded frustration, I feel like, because of what happened at Las Vegas late in that race too. Like, he's had 2 good runs in this round, but no finishes at all to show for it. Denny, we've seen a lot of mechanical woes with that 11 team this year. So you want all that sorted out in the next week and make sure that Phoenix car is perfect heading out to the desert. And Chase Elliott, like you mentioned, Brad, you couldn't help what happened. Obviously, it's the nature of Talladega. We knew when the schedule was released last year for this year where this race lied, and that's just the nature of the beast there at Talladega.
You know what? I'm glad you brought that up, because pre-race conversation, a lot of people would have told you, and a lot of people will still tell you, that in this format, Talladega, because of the wild card aspect of not necessarily anyone could win. That's part of it, but probably more importantly, things like what happened to Chase Elliott, Kyle Larson running out of fuel, William Byron getting spun on the last lap. That randomness comes into play and can be too much of a factor in this round. So, Dustin Albino, while we're talking with you, is it okay to have Talladega in this round, or did we just get maybe a little more lucky than having mass carnage among a lot of playoffs drivers?
So yeah, I totally kind of disagree with that randomness thought, because while it is Talladega and a lot can happen, anything can happen. If you have it like we've had it in every other year in the round of 12, like we talk about Cinderella's story, if you get a Cinderella driver winning that race, they're through to the round of 8. You don't get the best of the best in the round of 8. So I think it's honestly perfect where it is in this round. It would be hard to change my mind, honestly. And, I think Christopher Bell brought up this point a couple weeks ago. Maybe a couple other drivers did too. Like, it didn't turn out to be this way where you have 2 drivers getting in on points, but the likelihood of a non-playoff driver winning at Talladega is very high. And then you got 2 drivers getting in on points possibly if one were to win Martinsville or whatever that last race in the round is. So I'm all for Talladega being where it is now.
Dustin Long, if I'm NBC Sports, I'm pretty darn excited that Talladega sits where it does on the schedule. And but what say you? When we go, this race is in the same spot next year. Now, what the playoffs format is going to be, we're not sure. But let's just say all things are equal right now. Is Talladega a little less intimidating in this round, or is it still everything that we had hyped it up to be?
Well, I think it's still intimidating because anything can happen. And again, anything can happen at any race. You never know. I mean, who would have expected at Las Vegas for William Byron's race to end, as Dustin mentioned, with running into the back of Ty Dillon, unaware that Ty Dillon was trying to come down and get onto pit road. So, look, anything can happen. Obviously, it's more likely to have some unique things happen at Talladega. What would have happened had Shane Van Gisbergen not been able to slow his car as much as when he spun coming down pit road, and instead of just tapping the back of William Byron's car and a little bit of the back of Christopher Bell's, that he just slammed into both of them and could have taken those 2 guys out, and the playoff standings would have looked a lot different. So, where are you going to put it if you don't have it here? Because, look, I think for track equity, it makes sense to have a super speedway in the playoffs because you have Daytona in the regular season. You've got the Atlanta races in the regular season. You have a Talladega race. So you have 5 out of 26 races in the regular season are this style of racing. It needs to be represented in the playoffs. So where are you going to put it if you don't want it in this round? It needs to be somewhere in the playoffs, just as I think you can make the same argument with the road course, is that there needs to be a road course. And again, that's what the Charlotte Roval fulfills in the playoffs, just because you have so many road course races in the regular season that if you didn't have a road course race in the playoffs, that would not be the equity. And you're wanting to get a champion that is good at all types of tracks, and so put all types of tracks in the playoffs, and this is what you get.
I like the way you think, for sure. I would agree. The playoffs should be representative of where we race all season long. All right, gentlemen, when we come back, let's have a little bit of fun. And if you were to convince one of your friends who is not a racing fan why they should tune into Martinsville and everything that's on the line, what do you tell them? We'll talk about that next here on the Pit Reporters.
This is Kyle Petty for Echo Park Automotive. As you might imagine, I know a thing or two about cars, and I'm here to tell you about a whole new way to buy a car, truck, or SUV. Did you know that Echo Park Automotive has over 95,000 5-star reviews? On top of that, every car that Echo Park Automotive sells goes through a 190-point inspection to make sure that it looks and drives like new, so you leave happy. It's even in their name, Echo Park Automotive. Every car, happy owner. The official used car dealer of Speedway Motorsports.
We work hard to keep our cars looking great on the outside, but engine components need our attention too. That's where you can trust Z-Max Micro Lubricant to disperse carbon buildup in your engine and fuel system, to keep your car or truck running at its peak. By soaking into the metal of your engine, Z-Max Micro Lubricant improves performance, extends engine life, and reduces emissions. Trust the many customers who've said, "Thanks for saving my engine." Find out more at zmax.com or follow us on Facebook and Twitter.
Lenny Batycki brings you PRN at the Track every week here on PRN, the Performance Racing Network.
Hey, it's Charlie and Debbie, along with NASCAR legend Kyle Petty, inviting you to join us for Kyle Petty's Back Then Again Country Countdown.
Each week, we'll put it in reverse and take a trip down memory lane, looking back at that week's top 20 country songs from years past.
We'll dive into what made those songs and artists move the needle, what pop culture trends made those years unique.
And you'll get to hear me tell stories only I can tell.
So don't miss Kyle Petty's Back Then Again Country Countdown right here each week.
Welcome to PRN's At the Track. I'm Lenny Baticki. We are PRN's half-hour weekly show dedicated to the short track, dirt track, legends, and kart racing across the Southeast. We provide our audience with the news and insightful conversations with the newsmakers from grassroots racing. How did that help you this time to take this victory from a grassroots perspective?
I definitely felt like Martinsville was a lot harder than the other one.
That's PRN's At the Track.
Let's get back to more Pit Reporters on the Performance Racing Network.
Welcome back. Brad Gilley in for Brett McMillan. This weekend, if someone were to ask me, what do I think they should know heading into this Martinsville race because they heard it's going to be a big one, I would say, well, go to NBCSports.com and read what Dustin Long is writing, or go to jski.com and read what Dustin Albino is writing. But Dustin Albino, I'll start with you. If someone says to you, hey, I read your article, like what is the big deal? Why should I watch this weekend? What do you tell them?
Yeah, well, I think Martinsville personally sells itself, and just, broader, like we've talked a lot about the Cup Series, but then you add in the Xfinity Series and the Truck Series, and we've seen how those races have been really chaotic over the last couple of years. And this weekend, I would expect the same this year. And two, like across the series, we've talked about all the drivers needing to win at the Cup level to make the championship forward. But you look at the Xfinity Series and the Truck Series, and for the most part, it's kind of the same. You look at the Truck Series and you have two drivers desperately needing to win, and then there's also a points battle that's pretty tight between the other four drivers. And then the Xfinity Series, you got three drivers really that need to win. So this is going to be a fun weekend of racing at Martinsville. It is for sure. All right, Dustin Long. Hey, I'm new to NASCAR. What's so exciting? Why all the hype for this weekend? What do you tell them?
Well, I pull out a video clip from a few years ago, Ross Chastain and the Hail Melon. Now, again, that is a move that is not allowed anymore. But the point being is anything can happen, and if you weren't watching, you missed out on that moment. What's going to be the next big moment? Maybe it won't be a viral moment. Maybe it will be a viral moment. And but have the you can have the opportunity to see it and see it as it happens. And again, there's so many different opportunities, so many different scenarios. And look, when you add all that up and the desperation and drivers needing to win, anything is possible. And that's what I sell them on. It is like, look, you don't know what you're going to see, and it could be the most memorable thing you've seen in a while.
Yeah, I love the fact that if someone is a stick and ball sports fan, in what other sport do you actually have teammates battling teammates for the win? In what other sports do you have teammates battling teammates to try and win a championship? And that's what's on the line throughout this weekend as well. And it is going to be exciting for sure. Real quick, I know we got about a minute or so left. Dustin Long, what can you tell us about what we can find at NBCSports.com right now?
Yeah, just a lot of coverage and looking ahead at this weekend at Martinsville and some of the things we've talked about with, the guys that need to win. Chase Elliott, Ryan Blaney in particular. We'll have our feature of good news, bad news coming up here this week, and a lot of other things looking ahead for, what will happen on Sunday at Martinsville.
Going to be a lot of fun. All right, Dustin Albino, jski.com. What's out there right now? What can you tell us? Likewise, a lot of stuff covering this weekend. This week, I also have an Xfinity feature. I do one every week on the series director, Eric Peterson. He's new to the role this year. Just feel like it was a perfect fit this weekend going into Martinsville when who knows what's going to happen to run that. So, yeah, and then we'll have a lot of playoff coverage this week. Make sure to go to jski.com. We will definitely do that. Dustins, thank you. Maybe next time we have you both on together, we'll pit Dustin versus Dustin, and it'll be just like, a winner-take-all thing. But really appreciate y'all. I want to say a big thanks to Harold Hamrick and David Stiles for everything they do behind the scenes, including our production director, Kent Bernhardt. Brett McMillan will be back with you next week. One thing for sure, it's an exciting time in NASCAR right now. We have 6 drivers in the Cup Series fighting for the final 2 spots. And to Dustin's point earlier, we've got some great Xfinity racing. We have some great truck racing, much more coming up this weekend. Most of all, we want to say a big thanks to you for tuning in right here on the Pit Reporters.
Join us again next week for the Pit Reporters on PRN, the Performance Racing Network.